G'day. What do you know? How you going? Strike a light. So today we're back in the shed. It's not yet horrendously hot, which is good. We've had 2 days of rain in the past week or so, and it looks like it might rain again today, which is good. Filling up the old dams. They're looking a bit sorry for themselves. But today, with all the talk of power upgrade kits and shooting slugs at really high speeds and stuff, we're going to go in a different direction and do something that I really enjoy doing with my impact, and that's low power shooting. It seems to be that, well, the reason I enjoy it is because in Australia we're not allowed to have suppressors unless you are a vertebrate press controller or some sort of professional shooter where your entire income comes from shooting with a rifle. Then you can apply for a special license and get a suppressor. But I'm not that. I'm just your average Joe, and my guns are all really loud. So with the impact and the 700mm barrel, it allows me to turn the volume right down with that hammer spring. So shooting it on minimum is very, very quiet, which is good. It allows me to shoot after hours when other people are home and all that sort of stuff, and doesn't bother anybody. Usually when I do, the people around me don't even know that I'm doing it, which is great. The only downside is it's low power, so it's kind of a bit of a loopy trajectory, and yeah, you just kind of have to adapt and overcome. So that's what we're going to be doing today, some low power plinking and maybe some low power pest control later on. So yeah, this one's for my my sub 12 foot-pound homies and my restricted energy blokes from all over Europe, so hopefully you'll enjoy this. My 25, I'm going to put it over the Crony, but I'm pretty sure it's shooting somewhere between 600 and 700 feet per second with the heavy 25, so it's going to be way more. It's probably going to be like 20 or 30 FPE, not like a sub 12 gun or anything like that, but it's yeah, it's still quite a bit slower and quite a bit loopier and a little bit different to the proper full power settings. So my full power setting is about 930 feet per second. Standard impact Mark II 700mm barrel with the pellet liner in it. So yeah, nothing super special about the gun, but yeah, low power today. So let's chuck it over the Crony and see what numbers it gives me on minimum. This is my setup here. Got my Caldwell Ballistic Precision chronograph, sandbag behind it, and yeah, nothing overly special about that, but does the job. And there she is, the Impact Mark II. Schmidt & Bender up the top with in loopholed rings. Standard 480cc bottle, 700mm standard FX barrel. Haven't done anything to the trigger. Thick Vipertech bipod, love that thing. And yeah, very nice, very nice. Love this gun, definitely my favourite gun. I am looking at getting some 5MRAD rings, and I'm also thinking about making some sort of a elevation wedge to put in the rail. I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to do that yet, but yeah, it needs more elevation, because with the on that Schmidt & Bender, it's got a huge range of elevation. It's got plenty to do the job. I just kind of want to have it so that it's on the bottom turn, because it has 2 full rotations and like 26 MRAD or whatever it is of worth of elevation in the elevation turret. But I think I'm using about 16 MRAD just to get it on at like 25 meters, even on full power. So yes, time for elevation. I either need to change my 0 point and get a better sort of an arc. I don't know, maybe I'm using the second 0 and I could be using the first 0 or something like that, but I'm not really sure. But yeah, more testing to come for that. So hopefully one of these days I'll figure out what the ideal range is to 0 it at for the loopiness of my heavy 25s. But for now, it's using a fair bit of elevation, and it would be nice to bottom it out again so that my clicks go all the way around. So what I was doing just there is just throwing a few shots down range at max power just to blow the regulator out. Sort of, it creeps up a little tiny bit. This new regulator is much better than the old Crown ones were, but yeah, still needs a little bit of a refresh when you take it straight out of the safe. So pump a couple of rounds through and then get some, you know, some nice warm air moving through there, and then do your testing after that so that you're not recording any inconsistency for cold bore or cold regulator type shots. So there you have it. Not quite the extreme precision that you get when you're right up around where you actually tuned the hammer spring to be perfect, but we're on the downward trend and we're pretty stable there. So some of those shots, we've got a fair few duplexes, which is the same speed, 2 shots in a row, but there were a few high and a few low, so it's blown my extreme spread out to 28 feet per second with a standard deviation of 1.4. So not too bad, somewhere between 660 and 690 pretty much every time, with an average of 6 3/4. So I reckon that's a fair account. I saw 675 a number of times, and I think with when it comes to shooting it over the cronny like that, you really want to take that average number pretty seriously, because the inconsistencies that come from it are usually because you're shooting too quick and not giving the regulator enough time to actually refill, like fill the plenum and the regulator up again. So yeah, I reckon we're pretty happy with that. Nice and consistent for a low power setting. Very good. Right, so I just loaded all of that information into Strelok Pro, set up a new gun for the impact on minimum power, did all my scope heights, found my scope reticle. I'm not sure if it's the exact right reticle. I'll have to double check that later on. It doesn't really matter because I generally use the table more than I use anything else, the table or the quick solution. I don't really look at the reticle picture that it generates, but usually they're pretty much bang on. And yeah, it had the P4L. Mine is a P4FL, but I think the only difference between those two reticles is that the FL is illuminated and the L isn't. So yeah, I guess we'll see. But it doesn't really matter, it's all good. It's got all those things, it's got my clicks, I set it all to MRAD 0.1, all that jazz, and in the table it is telling me that at 10 meters it's making 31 foot-pound. So it's still nearly 3 times as powerful as a sub 12 gun. But yeah, sorry world, that's the best I can do. So I'm gonna go down, shoot some groups, do a bit of plinking, and have me a good time, get it all ready. And true the algorithm, it's very important that you double check all of your data. Usually what you want to do is shoot it at a close range and then shoot it at a further out range, and then tell the app at those distances where it was landing, and it'll adjust all of the math for you. So yeah, very good. Love this app. If you need a ballistic app, Strelok Pro is the way to go. Lovely. We're back on the range. After a little bit of shooting, a little bit of faffing about and some deliberations, I decided to zero at 15 meters, I believe. I think it was 15, instead of the 10 that I had it on before, because according to Strelok Pro, I should be able to be within 1 MRAD of elevation from all the way from 10 meters out to 40 meters then, with this particular speed on minimum power. I shall put a graph here, the table. And yeah, basically it's making about 33 foot-pounds, and that's not too bad for a minimum power gun. But after all that, I think what I need to do, well, what I really should do, is index my liner, because I keep forgetting to do that. But today I reckon I'll do that, and I think after some thought, just because it's so nice and quiet, I can see myself using it on minimum a lot more than I will on maximum around my place. So I reckon I'll actually undo the turrets and wind them down to 0 so that they're all ready to go and it all makes sense. And I'm also going to set my Kestrel up so that my Kestrel has something that reasonably approximates the data from Strelok Pro as well. So that's what we're going to do. Index the liner, settle on the turrets, and yeah, set up the Kestrel so that it's all running nice and smooth, and then it's ready to go whenever I need it. Just purely because having that nice low noise level is going to be much more useful to me in everyday circumstances, especially for flogging cane toads, which is what we're going to do tonight. Yay! So to index your liner, basically you need a 10mm spanner so that you can undo the retention nut. You just unwind it, slide the sleeve off, and then undo that retention nut with your 10mm. And I like to use a little piece of leather. This is just a scrap piece of leather just to protect the end of the barrel when I grab it with the pliers. Mark it with a Nico pen or a permanent marker, whatever you want to call it. Grab it with the pliers over the leather and then just turn it 90 degrees. Shoot a group, pull it apart again, turn it 90 degrees and work your way around the clock if you will, and then pick what's best, I guess. And what's best is going to be what ends up in the middle of your scope, the scope's travel basically. It's going to be, for me, the highest elevation point is probably going to be where it's going to want to be. So like the 12 o'clock high position of where it prints on the actual target, not necessarily where it comes from. So yes, let's shoot some groups. Round and around she goes. Where she stops, nobody knows. Right, so this target in the middle, I just lined it up and zeroed it on into the middle there. And then what I did after that was index the liner. So I marked the liner and then I put the dot sort of at the 12 o'clock position, and then I rolled it around 90 degrees to the 3 o'clock position. And basically my aiming point was right in the middle of this white dot here, and it's dropped pretty much a full 2 inches at 25 meters. So that is a big difference. That is a very big difference. I think what I'm going to do now, knowing that we've gone from landing in the middle to landing low, I might just flip it all the way around so that the liner is basically upside down. And if that goes 2 inches higher, then giddy up. I reckon we've solved our problem. It'll get us an extra couple of inches of elevation, and I'll be able to wind my scope down a little bit. That'll be good, very good. And I reckon we can probably tweak the windage of it a little bit too by only doing it to, you know, maybe not completely all the way around. So we'll see how we go. See my little black dot there? It's my 90 degree mark. So we'll spin it around so that it's on the other side, maybe just a little bit past. There you go. Spin it around a bit. Slide it back on in there. Looking good. Tension nut back on. Tweak it up a little bit. Got to be a bit gentle with them. Don't want to be threading anything on the end of this. Put this bad boy back on. Alright, retest time. Okie dokie. Exactly the same point of aim. Aiming dead center in that square. So pop you under here and see how we go. So here we are at the target again. That was spinning it from the 3 o'clock position across to the opposite side, so the 9 o'clock position. And you can see it's almost 180 degrees worth of change, worth of rotation. So it seems like, yeah, it's pretty much just leave it there, I guess, if that's going to be the top of it. I'll try the other positions just to see what happens, just in case there is some other extraordinary weirdness going on that I'm not aware of, and we'll double check it like that. But I dare say it looks like we're going to be leaving the liner in the 9 o'clock position. So yes, oh well, final testing, double check. We'll do the 6 o'clock and 12 o'clock positions and see where they end up. Interesting stuff, interesting stuff. So I reckon it's going to end up there, but we've got to double check. Alright, so predictably 12 remains opposite to 6, 3 remains opposite to 9, so there you go. I reckon we'll choose the highest one, and I would say that would be somewhere around, 9 or 10, and go for it there. I reckon that's the go. I'll compare it also to my windage, because it seems like I've got sort of about 6 or 7 MRAD of windage either side of 0 with this particular scope. So it might be a better idea to prioritize getting the scope centered over getting the elevation correct, because the elevation's so far off already anyway. I'm already like 16 MRAD up from the base where it normally sits. It's not a huge deal because it's got 26 MRAD of elevation, but yeah, probably better to prioritize windage over height. So more thought to be put into it. So I've just chosen my final mark. I rubbed out the old mark and left this one at the 12 o'clock position, so that now I have one that's easy to remember. It's always just leave the mark at 12 PM and it's all good. So yes, don't forget to do that, otherwise you might be next time you're cleaning your liner out or whatever, you might end up putting it back in the wrong position. So wipe whatever mark you used off to do it, then put a fresh one on there, and most wonderful. So scope's all zeroed out, happy days, looking good, sitting there pretty. It's a shame it doesn't end up a lot closer to the bottom of the travel, so I can actually use both turns of the elevation, but we'll sort that out with some MRAD in the rail and in the scope mount real soon. I also zeroed out the windage, so that's nicely settled. And now what I'm going to do is shoot a group at 15 just to double check, and then I'm going to move it all the way back out to probably the 40-yard line, maybe even a little bit further. We might push it all the way back and shoot another group, and then give those measurements to Strelok Pro and see if it changes the algorithm at all. So it's a little tricky to see in this light, so I'll put some screenshots up of what to do with your ballistic trajectory validation. So in the bottom right hand corner there's a little picture of a target with a blue up and down arrow. You want to click on that one and take you into the trajectory validation screen, and then select speed. I wouldn't recommend changing it with the ballistic coefficient, even though that would seem like a good thing to do, because pellets are weird. When they slow down, the drag behind them changes, which changes their BC a little bit. But for anything, but pretty much even with centerfire rifles, anything under like 600 yards, you just adjust the speed, and that takes you up and down in a much more sort of finely tunable way. So basically you just put in your distance in meters. In my case it was 35, which is pretty close for a trajectory validation, but I don't want to be blown all over the paper by the wind, being that my muzzle velocity is so slow. So it's still 20 meters further out than my zeroing point, so it's fine. It's further away, that's good. Further away is like even further than that would be better, but this is fine. And then you give it the correct elevation. So it told me to put 0.5 of an MRAD for my elevation, and it actually was I only needed 0.3, and I just told it that. I put in the elevation box, I put 0.3 MRAD, calculate, and then underneath it, it has a little ticket that says use this velocity, and you want to click use this velocity, and that will adjust the drop that it gives you in the tables and in the calculations to your real world conditions. So it's very close to start with, but that 0.2 of an MRAD could end up being the difference between hitting and missing, so it's definitely worth doing. So now that that's all confirmed, I think it's time to go inside and sit in the aircon, play some Halo, wait for the sun to go down and the toads to come out. Good times. Darkest night has fallen, and the twilight of the toad-apocalypse is upon us. That was terrifying. Trying something a little different tonight. I've got a my RX100 scope cam rigged up to the bottom of the gun where the bipod normally is. And on the other side, I've got a P25, a Nightcore P25, which is a nice little torch. I've had it for a long time, and it's still going strong. Yes, I know about Olights. Don't tell me to buy an Olight, alright? When I need to upgrade my torch, I'll buy an Olight if it makes you happy. But now, my torch is fine. It's fine. Let's go shoot some toads. Ooh, that was convincing. Very nice. Plenty of toads to go around tonight. Ooh, diced. There he is, dead as a doorknob. Missed. Didn't miss that time. Delightful. There you are. Very dead. Extremely dead. Right, so all done with the toads. Shot probably, I don't know, it was 20 to 25 of them. So yeah, a good old night on the old toad hunt. Couldn't use much of the footage because it was either blurry from the camera moving out of focus or whatever, or it was just too gory for YouTube, so can't really put stuff up that's a little bit too grotesque. But yeah, there you have it. Lots of toads out, so we're going to have to do a lot more toad hunts and get their numbers down, try and give our little froggies a break, and the native wildlife and everything. So they're all in a big bag in the wheelie bin off to the landfill where they belong. So I am going to go and rest my weary head, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.